If you're trying to buy a home in Branford right now, here's a number I'd pay attention to: 1.83. That's how little housing inventory Branford had in July. I'm Frank DiGrizenzo with Calcaney Real Estate, and this is your Connecticut housing update, where we take the latest housing data and, more importantly, we talk about what it actually means if you're trying to buy a home in that particular town. This week, the town we're looking at is Branford, Connecticut. Let's start with inventory because this really sets up everything else we're going to talk about. Branford had just 1.83 months of inventory in July. That's down almost 24% from June and about 28% from a year ago. In plain English, there still aren't enough homes available to meet buyer demand. So if you've been waiting for Branford to suddenly become flooded with homes and give buyers all the negotiating power, the July numbers aren't showing that yet. Inventory remains tight. Now here's where things get interesting. New listings came onto the market with a median asking price of $399,000 in July. If you're shopping somewhere around the $400,000 range, that's encouraging because it tells us homes are still entering the market around that price point. But don't confuse the median with a guarantee that you're gonna have a huge selection at $400,000. With inventory this tight, the individual property still matters. And you can see that when we look at everything that was actively for sale at that month, the median asking price for active listings was considerably higher. It was $524,900. That's a pretty big gap between the median price of homes coming onto the market and the median price of the overall inventory. For buyers, this is where knowing your budget and being realistic about what that budget buys in Branford becomes important. Next, let's look at what buyers are actually putting under contract. The median asking price of new homes pending was $395,000. That's remarkably close to that $399 median for new listings. And this is another reminder that the headline price you see for all homes currently sitting on the market doesn't necessarily tell you where all the buyer activity is happening. Let's look at what actually sold. The median sold price was $423,000 in July. That's down about 15% from June. But I would be careful about looking at 1 month and concluding that Branford home value suddenly dropped 15%. That's not the case. Monthly medians can move considerably depending on the mix of homes that happen to close that particular month. And here's a number that tells us buyers are still competing. Homes sold at roughly 102% of their asking price. So despite that lower median sale price, buyers were still paying slightly above asking. That's a much better example of why you need to look at several numbers together instead of grabbing one statistic and declaring that the market's changed. There is one number that moved in the buyer's direction. Median time on market for homes increased up to 46 days, up roughly 48% from the previous month. But here's where I'd put that number into context. Longer market times can create an opportunity for an individual property, especially if a home has been sitting while newer listings are getting a lot of attention. But with only 1.83 months of inventory and homes still selling at about 102% over their asking price, I wouldn't call this a buyer's market at all. I'd call it a reason to pay attention to each individual listing. Look for opportunity property by property. This is probably the best takeaway for this week. So what's the Branford market telling us? Inventory is still tight. Homes are still selling slightly above asking on average, but we're also seeing some interesting differences between the price of new listings, active inventory, and homes buyers are actually putting under contract. If you're buying here, that means I wouldn't approach every Branford listing the same way. A new listing that's priced well may require you to move quickly. A property that's been sitting for a while may be completely different. And if Branford is one of the towns you're considering, I've got another video coming out later this week that I think you're going to want to see. We're going to go beyond the averages and look at what approximately $500,000 will buy you in Branford right now. If you're looking to buy in Branford, New Haven County, or the surrounding area, and you have questions about where to start, reach out. I'm always happy to help. I'm Frank DiGrizenzo with Calcaney Real Estate. Thanks for watching Connecticut Housing Update. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of the latest updates, and leave a comment about which towns you'd like to see me cover next.